I'm Rebecca King Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Sean Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance.
Today on Conversations on Dance, we are joined by Ashley Weeder, Artistic Director of the Joffrey Ballet. Ashley takes us through his career, tells us about the important roles mentors played in his dancing, how he came to the helm of the Joffrey, and what audiences can expect to see from the company this summer at the Ballet Sun Valley Festival. Ballet Sun Valley presents the Joffrey Ballet in two different programs over 2 nights this June 29th and 30th. Tickets are on sale now. For more information, visit balletsunvalley.org or click the link in the show notes.
Good morning, Ashley. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to have you on to talk about the wonderful work you do as the artistic director at the Joffrey. But since you've never been on, we would love to hear a bit about your own personal performing career before we take it that direction. Maybe how you became interested in being a dancer, and then a little bit about all of these incredible companies that you've got to work with as a performer.
Okay, good morning. It's really great to be here with both of you. I will try to condense it, but I think that my parents loved theater. So when we were growing up, music was really a big thing in our house, theater, the opera, and my sisters all took ballet. And I was a bit of a little Billy Elliot. I, went along and picked them up from ballet with my mom and decided that, the music for me was like the first thing that drew me to ballet. And then I started to take a few classes, and the teacher that I had was an amazing woman called Mary Hockney, who just kind of nurtured me. So at 6 years old, I started, and still going. Like I've never ever thought about anything else other than this art form. Mm-hmm. And so, when I was 10 years old, I auditioned for the Royal Ballet School, and then I went to the Royal Ballet School all the way through there into the Royal Ballet. And in my years in the Royal Ballet School, I did a lot of work with the main company at Covent Garden. Mm-hmm. And just through the years, I got to know Nureyev very well, Rudolf Nureyev, and he invited me to come to what is now English National Ballet, but was then London Festival Ballet. Mm-hmm. So I left the Royal Ballet and I went to Festival Ballet. And I have to say, it was the best move I ever made, because within 2 months of being in that company, I worked with Glenn Tetley, with Rudolph. I did Benvolio, Paris with Rudolph as Romeo. I did Sleeping Beauty. I just had so many opportunities, and it was a fantastic time. And so then I did a Swan Lake in London when I was 21. They made me a principal. And then I was invited to Australia. And
I'm wondering, if it hadn't been for Rudolph, that's a pretty big mentor, and someone like that, of that importance, offering that advice. Do you think you would have been able to make that jump? Because I feel like you kind of achieved, you've lived your dream, like you've made it to your dream, right? And then having to kind of change gears that young, that's a really tough choice.
I think though that when I was graduating from the Royal Ballet School, Rudolph had chosen me to do Jean de Brion in Raymonda, and I had torn the meniscus in my knee, so I couldn't perform in that. But in the summer, he used to have a season called Rudolph and Friends. So I was in the performances when I came back from my injury. I was in those performances of Marguerite and Almond with him and Fontaine. So, that was, it's been pretty amazing. And I do have to say that until Rudolph passed away, we remained really good friends. When I left to go to Australia, I asked him what he thought. And he said, "You should see the world." He said, you know what's here in London, but you don't know what else is out there. And so it was a really great advice. Yeah. And then going from the Australian Ballet, where I met Gerald Arpino, and Gerald Arpino talked to Robert Joffrey, and they invited me to New York. And, I came to New York and danced with the Joffrey, which was truly, truly amazing. I never thought in my career I would ever end up in America. but America is my home. You know, I love America. I've been here for a long time now. And I think my years in the Joffrey with Robert Joffrey and Joe Arpino was so informative. You know, I got to work with Mark Morris, was really an up-and-coming choreographer. Of course, Twyla Tharp, Bill Forsyth, James Kudelka, as well as all the Ashton repertoire and the Cranko repertoire. So it was truly amazing. Like Robert Joffrey was just such a visionary.
Right.
And his passing was really hard for the company.
So by the time you go to SF and you're moving across the country again, is that just like, oh, these kinds of moves, they're old hat now, you know, like no adjustment needed, you know?
You know, I think that life is an adventure, and I'm up for the adventure. And I think that, you know, it's not that I would move anywhere, but I think that when Helgi invited me to San Francisco Ballet, you know, I knew San Francisco because the Joffrey performed there every year. So for me, that was, and it was a great company, and Helgi was amazing. And then equally coming to Chicago, a city that I've always loved, because we toured here with the Joffrey every year. And I have to say that living in Chicago and the people of Chicago they have made my life so incredibly rich.
Oh, I love that. I wonder how having some of these mentors in your career, not to fast forward too much, but how that has informed you as an artistic leader now, how, you know, you saw how important it can be to have someone lead you and give you this advice when you need it. How has that helped you now?
I think it's been huge. I do. I think I'll go back to Rudolph, because when Rudolph took over Paris Opera was always the major company of France, and it was always a good company. But when Rudolph took that company over, he changed everything about that company, how they looked at the art form, how they, you know, he expanded their range of art. So they became a very hybridized company between great classical ballet and amazing contemporary ballet. And I think that for me has always been, you know, the Paris Opera is such a beautiful company, such a role model. And he did amazing things. So I think that Rudolph was key. I think Helgi was key.
Yeah.
Right. At what point did you consider that being an artistic leader as a director was something that you were interested in? Was it seeing these men lead with greatness and vision and ambition, and then did you kind of transfer that to yourself and think, well, maybe this is something for me?
I think that I had always, even at a young age, loved teaching. My mother will tell you that when I was 13 and I came home in the summer from the Royal Ballet School, and I had been there for 2-3 years, and she said, we were having a conversation, and you just told her that. I said, one day I'm going to be a director. It's what I really want to do. And I think that, you know, maybe I wasn't really focused on that, but I have to say it is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life, is to run a company and to see what opportunity can do for somebody, you know, to see people grow and mature and take on amazing roles and just develop as human beings, but also as great artists. That for me is the most fulfilling thing.
Isn't that, I think I mean, you had such an incredible career. Look at all these companies you danced in, and you had, you know, incredible mentors and partners. And yet, you know, when you finished your career, did you think that you could have something like that would be even more fulfilling than your personal performing career?
I mean, I've always been a hard worker. I think that's just the way I was brought up. But I think that because I had a serious injury when I retired, and it was a lot of spinal surgery, and at that time it was really scary. And I just remember Helgi saying to me, whatever happens, I want you at San Francisco Ballet. Let's get through the surgery, but I want you. And you need to know there's a place for you at San Francisco Ballet. That is really a really beautiful gift.
Oh, yeah. Just that peace of mind to know that something exists for you next,
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So, I went through 2 years of rehab, and, it took months and months and months, but Helgi was there every step of the way.
Oh,
So
beautiful.
in 2007, the opportunity to direct your former company, Joffrey Ballet, came about. I'm wondering, it's obviously, so it's an organization that you knew in and out, having been a part of it for many years. When you took over the helm, what were some things that you kind of knew right away, a direction you wanted to take the company, ways that you knew as someone who had been there, that things could push forward a little bit?
Right. I mean, I think that, the Joffrey moved to Chicago in 95. And even though I was on the West Coast for nearly 20 years, I kept up with what was happening at the Joffrey, and it wasn't all roses. I think there was a struggle. I think when the company left New York, the company were really trying to find their place again.
Right.
And the Joffrey's kind of risen from the ashes several times. So this was just another time. And I think that the reality was that Robert Joffrey and Gerald Arpino were very different people. And, Jerry loved to choreograph and Joffrey loved to direct. And I think that there's a big difference there.
Right.
So when I came to Chicago, my overwhelming love for Robert Joffrey was just suddenly ignited. After all those years of not really thinking about it, suddenly I was like, oh my God. I just felt this emotion in me. And, obviously I accepted the position. And then it was about really kind of rebuilding the company and what should the company look like today, and what does a dance company look like in this age. And it's just been a slow and steady journey that has been amazing.
Right.
It's had hiccups, but it's been amazing.
I feel like the company is so well integrated into Chicago culture. Like it feels very much a part of the city. Did you find it, this at that point, the company had only been in the city for a little over a decade, but did you find that you were still trying to integrate it to Chicago, or did you feel like by that point the city had kind of accepted it as one of its major cultural jewels?
I would, if I'm going to be really honest, I would say that that they wanted a ballet company and they wanted the Joffrey, and people loved the Joffrey. But the reality was, a lot of people said, there is the lyric opera, there is the Chicago Symphony, there is theater, and then there's the Joffrey. And I think that, as I've always said, you earn your reputation, you earn the respect of your city. And today I would say, when people talk about the Joffrey Ballet, they talk about the Joffrey, the lyric opera, and the Chicago Symphony.
Yes.
And I think that, I look at where our subscription is today, which is a changing market, and we're doing so well. And I think of every single program that we have performed this year has exceeded its goal by 150, 140% of its goal.
Wow.
So, to have 3,400 people attend performances, not like just one, but like many, is amazing.
Yeah.
So I do. I think Chicago feels that the Joffrey Ballet is their company. And I think when we redid the Nutcracker, and Christopher Wilden, created a Nutcracker for the Joffrey, for Chicago, I think that people just felt, wow, this is about us.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think I immediately, I love Chicago. And part of what I love about Chicago is that I think it's one of the only cities in America that truly has great, great symphony, opera, and ballet company. And so
sport.
Of course. Don't forget, Michael.
About that.
Well, no, because it is the balance. No, but it's true. There is a balance here. I mean, Chicago is such a cultural city. There's so much happening here, which is wonderful. And I do love that, there are people, they love both. They love the arts, they love sport. and they understand the value of what makes a great city and why it should be supported.
Right.
Yeah. I wonder, what were some of your initial goals coming into your directorship? What were your, first action points? And then how do you feel like you achieved those and then kind of shifted your gaze to something else?
I mean, I think, the disciplines that were put upon me as a young person, and then as an adult, and I think working with Helgi and San Francisco Ballet having such a global reach and such a high reputation. So I wanted to push the Joffrey. And I think that because I teach a lot, and at the time I was teaching a lot, was to really bring the company up. To bring them up and to expose them to so many different ideas about what the art form could be. So whether it was working with Lars Lubavitch or Wilden, Kudelka, Alexander Ekman, so I brought all these new people to the Joffrey, which had never worked here.
Right.
You were actually, I believe, the first person to take Justin Peck's work outside of New York City Ballet. It was for Increases.
Yes.
Which we saw when we were doing the Chicago Dancing Festival.
Oh, okay. Of course.
I remember Rory in that, in the Robbie Fairchild part. But yeah, so I mean, you obviously, you like to foster new talent and have that feed off the talent of your own ranks of the company.
Yeah, and right now we're in rehearsals for Midsummer Night's Dream by Alexander Ekman, and I think that Alex has had such a love affair with the Joffrey Ballet, and we love Alex. So I think that just bringing new voices into our art form and exposure is really important. I love Balanchine, I love all of that, but I think that we have to also keep a balance there.
Right, do you feel like you had to kind of like balance bringing new things with kind of gaining the trust of the audience, right? Because when something new comes, people might see it. That's something that all companies struggle with, right? The Swan Lakes that bring everything in, it's safe, everybody knows it, versus something new. How did you kind of like balance that?
I think that one of the, you know who Lars Lubavitch is, of course.
Of course, yeah.
And
we've interviewed
him on the podcast.
Oh, okay. So, Lars is a really special person, and he was quite adamant that I should take the job at the Joffrey. He pushed me. He said, "You need to do this." And I think that when I came to the company, I didn't like the programming, and so my first year, I asked Lars if we could do. What is it? My Funny Valentine. And we did it, and there was a really lovely response from the audience. But then, 2008-9 was a terrible time economically in America.
Right.
And I had talked to Laura about putting Othello on, because I had worked on Othello from the get-go when it was a co-production with American Ballet Theatre and San Francisco Ballet. And we went to Paris with Othello, and it was like groundbreaking. And it was a huge financial undertaking for the Joffrey at the time. But we did it, and it was transformative. And I would say that when we did Othello, people went, wow, okay, this company has got big ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
We're talking about some of the rep changes you're making, but I'm wondering, eventually dancers start to part ways with the company, and you're hiring your own dancers with your own vision of what the company should be. So, what kind of qualities do you look for in a dancer? What are you first seeing when someone comes to audition for the company that is going to make or break your decision on a hire?
Musicality. For sure. I mean, technique, but technique that is danced, not technique that is shown. I think, to see a dancer who has fluidity and quality, and I think about what Robert Joffrey said. He said, the thing about a great dancer is that they come in all shapes and sizes. So there was never like an aesthetic for me.
Right.
Because there is a really good dance. If you're a good dancer, you're a good dancer.
Right.
Whether you're right for the company or not is a different thing.
Right.
But I do think that we started the academy in 2008. And when I look at the company today, 95% of the company have come here as young people.
Yeah. And how do you feel like that changes for you? Because then that allows you to really foster them more,
Right.
and really grow that aesthetic.
I think that nurturing someone is it's like being a gardener. You plant the seeds and you just watch something grow and blossom. And that you have to commit to that. Like, you have to invest in every person that you bring into the company, and you have to want to see them succeed. So we have very little turnover. We have people that, retire or change their path in life. But I don't think that we're changing the company every year and saying, we need that and that and that. And it's more like, what does the holistic picture look like?
Yeah.
What is the tapestry of the company? And I think when I look at the company, I just see this beautiful tapestry of humanity.
That's beautiful. So the company will be traveling to Idaho later this summer for Ballet Sun Valley, which we love.
Our first visit.
Yay!
Yes. Yay!
How fun.
I'm wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about the two programs that audiences will see. What ballets populate the programs? And
I would say it's a very Joffrey program. It's super eclectic. There are some anchors. So that the big anchors are a piece by Andrew McNichol called Yonder Blue, which we performed in the winter. Very beautiful work. Justin Peck's Times Are Racing. We are doing a piece of Gerald Arpino's because it's his 100th anniversary, and we're trying to honor him as one of the founders of the Joffrey Ballet. So we're doing birthday variations. We're also doing a piece that was done for the company by Nicolas Blanc called Under the Trees Voices. We have a wonderful solo by a young Brazilian choreographer, which we're super excited about, Manuela. So she was here creating that. I think we have a pas de deux by Christopher Wilden. I think it's going to be Carousel, a dance. And I think we also have Round of Angels by Gerald Arpino, which is beautiful. So it's a massive program, like 2 nights and.
Right. I mean, like how many ballets did you just name?
I know. I think we're doing like 8 or 9 ballets.
That's why it's hard to remember.
And the week before that, we have a week of performances in Los Angeles with Anna Karenina.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's been busy.
How does your approach to programming differ when you're at home and planning your season in Chicago versus when you're going on tour?
Right. I think it's, you have to look at the schedule and how much time do we have, and and what is going to make a kind of satisfying journey for somebody who comes to the theater or doesn't know the Joffrey.
Right.
But then what you hope is that by the end of the program, they've seen the company dance a kind of vast, spectrum of our art form and go, wow. And I think that there's such a great energy in the company for what they do, that it's pretty infectious.
Yeah.
The Joffrey's always been that company to reach across the orchestra.
Right. Yeah, we were just saying that before we started recording, that when we were in Chicago, Miami City Ballet took class with your dancers. And I just remember them being so much fun and just having that same like energy that we all had. And I just remember feeling like just so much warmth from them and seeing them perform too. They're just a great company.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's important to create a really healthy culture. And I think these ideas of, power play, it's just not necessary. My door is open to the company. I think because I'm in the studio with the company a lot, It's really important. I mean, right now, rehearsals for Midsummer Night's Dream, every single person in the company is in it.
Right.
So there is no second cast. There is all of us.
Yeah.
And to see that amazing energy of all of them come together, it's intoxicating.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about the way that Justin Peck talks about the company and what he loves is like Rebecca was saying, that the energy and the sort of individuality of everyone, you know, that I feel like no dancer in the company could be mistaken for any other dancer.
True.
And like with the times erasing, Justin is very, very picky about who he lets do that ballet. I mean, I don't, you know.
Yeah. Does anyone else do it?
Well,
I think
a couple other companies do,
I think P&B have done it.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know he will turn down people that are not right for it, and I think it's what he's looking for is that sort of energy and individuality that Joffrey Ballet just innately has in its ranks. It's just such an obvious fit.
He's honestly, Justin is a super wonderful human being, and I love that he thinks about us. So he checks in all the time. I'm coming to Chicago. Can we have coffee? I was thinking about you guys. So the other day when he wrote and said, I'm thinking about all of you and my time in Chicago, and I really would love you to take a look at this. You know?
So nice.
It's really nice.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
So we've talked a little bit about how much teaching has been a part of your life. I'm wondering how often you are able to get in the studios with the dancers and coach them in specific works.
Well, outside of having a knee replacement, I am pretty much in the studio for everything. So I'm in rehearsals for Midsummer. I take rehearsals for Anna Karenina. I actually have everything. And I think that as an artistic department and all the rehearsal directors, we just share all the responsibilities. And I think that, you know, any one of us could go into a rehearsal and rehearse.
Yeah.
It's very collective.
Yeah. Just as our last question, I wonder what you are hoping that audiences from Ballet Sun Valley will take away from these two incredibly diverse programs that the Joffrey will be presenting.
I hope that because they've had other companies there. You know, they've had San Francisco Ballet, they've had Dutch National Ballet, Boston Ballet. I hope that they just say, wow, you know, as one of America's, you know, iconic dance companies, yeah, it's important that we're here, that we're around, and how valuable the arts are, and that we need to make a commitment to all of the arts across America, because we cannot afford to lose them.
No.
And I think that there's a really willing crowd in Sun Valley. And I hope they just say, wow, what a beautiful company.
Yeah.
Well, we hope that any listeners that are looking to travel for dance this summer will head out to Idaho with you guys. And if not, that they see you at home in Chicago this season or any season after. Have you announced programming for next year?
We have. So we open in the fall, in October, after a tour to Germany. So we're opening with Atonement by Kathy Marsden. It's a co-production with Zurich Ballet Zurich.
Cool.
I mean, the story of Atonement is heartbreaking. And I think it is going to be an incredibly beautiful new work.
Right.
So that is opening.
About that. We'll have to talk to Kathy about that.
We've talked to Kathy a few times, and that, I mean,
of
course, that seems super up her alley. I was totally unsurprised to hear that would be something she'd want to tackle.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're taking her Of Mice and Men to Baden-Baden in September.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I think that it was such a beautiful work, a commission score by Thomas Newman. I mean, just off the charts. Atonement has a commission score by Laura Rossi. We're super excited. And then we have Danny Rowe coming in the winter to do The Princess and the Pea, new work. And we have some revivals. And then we're going to end our season with Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Wilden.
Always the hit.
Which is kind of fantastic. And, we'll be the first American company to present it.
Wow.
That's wild.
Isn't that wild?
That is wild. That's so
that
strange. I'm like, I've seen it like 4 times. How's it not been in America? That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, I think Chris has a love for the Joffrey. We certainly love Chris. He's such a part of this organization.
Right.
He's been amazing to me. So I think that he just could see every character in Alice in the company.
Right.
Cool. It's funny when you're talking about this programming, like we were saying, there's, things that pack the house like a Swan Lake, but these things are still items that people like Of Mice and Men, that's familiar,
Right.
Princess and the Pea, that's familiar, and Alice in Wonderland. So you're still bringing new things while keeping a familiarity that will draw audiences in.
Right. And I do have to say that I think in Chicago, because there is so much theater here, there is an openness to new ideas. And I think that, there are lots of companies that come to Chicago. American Ballet comes here. New York City Ballet were just here. Miami City Ballet's been here. And I think that, why we don't want to repeat what everyone else is doing, because I think everyone brings something wonderful.
Right.
So we do Swan Lake, we do Giselle, but we don't have to do them all the time. And I think this year, when we look at our box office, Frankenstein was triumphant.
Wow. Yeah.
So was the Nutcracker, like triumphant.
Right.
And so we did a program with a world premiere by Stina Quashbar. Absolutely beautiful work. And then Midsummer Night's Dream has already exceeded all its box office goals.
Wow. Congratulations. That is no small feat. All of those.
Yeah,
really.
We're happy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting online and looking up some flights to Chicago after this. You've inspired me.
Well, you should if you want to come see Midsummer, let me know, because it is spectacular and you will never see anything like it ever.
Amazing.
When is it running through?
It opens on the 25th until the 5th of May.
Okay.
Amazing.
Very good.
Well, we hope everyone in Chicago will turn out for Midsummer if there are any tickets left.
Exactly. Exactly.
But thank you so much, Ashley. It was so wonderful talking to you, and we hope to have you on as a guest another time.
It would be a pleasure, and it's really lovely to have time with both of you. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Conversations on Dance is part of the ACAST Creator Network. For more information, visit conversationsondancepod.com.